Just as you can publish any of your graphs as a module, you can also expose them as an endpoint to use in any real-world application. NodeScript will also take care of all of the compiling and bundling, as well as any variables and dependencies that the graph might have, and it will even capture sample data to use in monitoring. So let's take a look at how to do it. We're going to use the graph we made in our previous tutorial, which is a very simple hello world graph, which takes a string as an input and outputs hello value of the input. So in our case, hello world. It's important to remember that because we're going to use this query to check our endpoint is functioning correctly once we have published it. And to do that, we're going to click on Publish in the top right, and we're going to toggle Expose via HTTP. You'll see a few things pop up right away. The first of which is the method with which your request will be made. For today, we just need to use get. You can also choose here the URL exactly as it will be written. You can make sure you have correct naming conventions. You can change things to make sure they don't match anything else in your workspace, and you can check that by clicking on existing endpoints in this workspace. This will just list all of the other published endpoints within the current workspace. So if we publish it, we can see in the bottom left a little note telling us it's been published, and we can copy the URL directly to our clipboard right here, or we can navigate home by clicking on the home button, and we can select endpoints from the sidebar. This will list all of the published endpoints. You can see here again, stats is another one we had that was listed in the previous menu. And you can see the URL in the right menu here. So let's copy that to our clipboard and let's open that in our browser. So with it at the top, you can see our naming convention that we chose here in the URL. And we can see hello, and there's a space because our input was world. So we just want to check that our endpoint is running correctly. So we'll just put as a query, name was the name of our input from our graph. We'll add world as a value, hello world. So we know that the graph is behaving as expected, and that's great. That's as simple as it is to publish your graph as an endpoint. If we go back to endpoints here in NodeScript and you select the endpoint from the list, you can see now it's been called in monitoring. You can hover over and see how many times the endpoint's been called, or you can edit and delete the endpoint from the action menu. You can also go to the graph directly if you want to make any edits manually. You can also add your own endpoint by clicking Add Endpoint here from the endpoint screen. You'll be able to select any of the published modules in this workspace, as well as the specific version of it. The latest version will be selected by default if nothing is selected. You can set all of its routing information just as we did when we published it. And here also you can add any middleware that might be needed for the endpoint to run correctly. This is again selected from any published module you have in the workspace. And that is everything you need to know to get started working with endpoints in NodeScript.